G'day and welcome back to Australia's best classic mini YouTube channel for season 4 of Tomo's tune-ups. Like season 3, we are starting it working on IGS and we are going to be replacing the indicator stalk on a classic mini. So folks, welcome back to the channel. Thank you very much for tuning in for the 4th season of Tomo's tune-ups. This is going to be an exciting year. We have some really cool stuff available this year, in which I'm going to be showing you guys later down the track. So to kick the year off, we are going to be working on the little itty bitty IGS behind me, which is a classic Mini Ute. Now, for those of you who haven't seen already, this vehicle has already previewed on my channel last year. I'll put a link in the description above, but essentially what we're going to be doing here is replacing the indicator stalk. So Kyle mentioned that his indicators didn't work, so I thought, okay, well, let's just bring it around, let's have a look and see what we can do for it. So let's just have a look and see what's actually going on. Well, this is probably half the reason why it doesn't work. It's all pulled apart. Not just that, but essentially what he found was the indicators weren't working, period. With these, they do have an RGB headlight, I believe, and they've got the ring around the outside, which I'll show you guys now. And he was saying that what would happen is you'd turn the indicators on and they just wouldn't flash. So you have the headlight and then that ring around the outside, that actually flashes yellow. This down here is just a park light, I believe. So we're going to turn on the headlights and see what it does once we replace the switch. But essentially, we're going to throw the switch in first and then suss out what exactly is going on. As far as I believe, this car has been like this for quite some time. He doesn't actually drive it as much as what I drive Grace, which is, you know, everyone has their own, you know, rhymes and reasons, but, you know, she sits here and collects dust at the moment. So let's just jump in, let's replace the indicator stick, the stalk, should I say, and get cracking on the episode. All right, so this job is actually quite simple. These parts were sent to me by Minisport, so thank you very much, guys, for helping me out with this one. Essentially what we need to do is just remove the 2 screws at the back of the indicator stalk. So there are 2 Phillips heads that you just need to remove. This is actually quite easy to do on this vehicle compared to mine, only because Grace has a shroud that goes around the outside of the steering column. So not that it makes it much harder, but it is a bit easier to get off because that literally is just 2 screws, and then we have the wiring just down in here, so that should just pull straight out. Now these are a direct factory replacement, meaning that the plug at the back of the indicator assembly is the same as a standard Mini. And let's grab the new one out of the box. Now with Kyle's car, it does have the horn assembly on the side of the indicator stalk. So like a conventional horn is obviously in the middle of the steering wheel, but this one is actually on the end of the indicator. So I believe, this being a early 60s model car from memory, they should have had a center horn button. So I'm sure someone in the comment section can please let me know if I'm wrong, which I probably am. But I was under the impression that only some of the later vehicles had the one on the side of the horn, sorry, on the side of the indicator stalk. So once I get through the baby-proof wrapping, we can eventually get this thing open. So this is a pretty straightforward job, as I said. Essentially what we're going to do is you're going to put the indicator stalk on, and then we're going to check it out as to what we need to do to get this thing going. Is it just the indicator stalk, or is it further problems with the vehicle? So this is the stalk here, and that's the button or the switch for the horn. All right, so typical male, I didn't even look in the box. There is a set of instructions, which I'll put up on the screen. Essentially, it goes through talking about unpinning the old harness, so this one here, and then repinning it to the new one. So it is a pretty straightforward process, and we're going to go through it one step at a time. All right, so in the instructions, it does list how to change it from the original style to the newer style plug. So these are generally made for a Leyland Mini. So like Kyle's got, his is a Morris Mini, mine is a Leyland Mini. So they are 2 different ones. I would say this original vehicle did not come out with this style indicator assembly. So they must have been different. And I'm pretty sure the Morris Minis came out with a little indicator flasher on the side of the stalk itself. So like I said, please someone let me know in the comments section below. Essentially what we're going to be doing here is removing all of the new terminals. So we're going to be grabbing the new harness. We're going to be pulling out all the wires one by one, and then we're going to be grabbing the old harness, pulling them out and putting the new wire inside the old harness connector. So what this is going to do is remove all of the old pins, swap them over, that way it is compatible with the newer style one. So essentially we've got our new harness here, and we're going to remove each terminal one by one. Essentially what I'm using here is a Ryobi very small flat blade screwdriver that you generally use for something like watch batteries or any sort of fine delicate work. So what we're going to be doing is just grabbing the screwdriver, and we're just going to be applying pressure to the tab down underneath there, and then we're just going to be removing the wire one at a time. Now when it comes out, I'll show you, it does have a small tab underneath in which you do need to press, which then enables the wire to pull out. So I'll just see if I can find where the tab is. Oh, there it is. All right, so essentially just here, I'll try and put a photo of it there. This is the tab that you do need to push down. So you're going to push your screwdriver in down through here. It is then going to be pushing down on that tab, which then enables you to remove the wire or the terminal from the connector. So you do want to repeat that same process for each one of them. And then once you're done, you then need to refit these wires into the old terminal. All right, so make sure you remove one wire at a time. Don't get too far ahead of yourself. Make sure you apply enough pressure just to be able to pull the tab down and then pull the wire out. It is important to make sure as well that you rebend these tabs up, because failure to do so means that when you go to put it back in, it's not going to be able to lock into the original connector. So now, one at a time, we are going to be swapping them over from the old style to the new style. Failure to do so means that we're going to pull everything out at once and then go, yeah, it's all good, put it in, and it's not going to work, and then we're going to be here for the next 45 minutes trying to work out exactly which way it needs to go. So essentially what we're going to be doing is looking at the old style plug and then match out the wire color to suit the new wiring harness. So as you can see here, there are a couple of different colors. So we're just going to go through one at a time and replace those, just making sure that we match up the new one with the old one. All right, so this is going to be a pretty slow and tedious process. Essentially, I'm just going to do one wire at a time, and I'll just film me doing one, and then you can just repeat the same process to do it. So the first one we're going to be replacing is the green with a brown wire. So put it in there, pull it out like you normally would, grab the new harness, find the green with a brown trace, which I believe should be that one. Yep. Make sure you bend up that tab as well. That way it enables it to be able to push back in. So just grab your screwdriver and just give it a little bit of a push. Yep. And then we're just going to be refitting this. Now the terminal will only go in one way, so make sure you fit it the correct way. That way it'll lock in. Once it's in, give it the tug test and make sure that the wire is secure in there. Go ahead and replace the other 7 terminals that are inside the terminal block. All right, so as you can see, I have swapped over all the wires. I believe there are 8 here, but the original one had 9. So this purple one here, we're just going to leave out to the side. Just make sure that we don't need that. So long as we don't and everything works fine, we're going to go through, assemble everything, make sure everything works. Once it does and we're happy with it, we can then probably cut this one and just terminate it. That way that wire's not going to be doing something. You might find that be for something like a dipper switch or high beam switch, whatever it may be, but we can work that out later down the track. So essentially we have our new harness fitted with the original style connector. Let's go refit it to the column and make sure that everything works properly. Let's put it back together, do it the exact same way like I showed you before, and then we can go through and test it, make sure that everything works the way that it should. All right, once it's in, we're then just going to be connecting the 2 harnesses. Once again, make sure that it goes the correct way. Push it all the way in. All right, now all the wires are in there. Let's go through and test it, make sure everything properly works. All right, first and foremost, I think probably the horn's the easiest thing. All right, so it's not going to work because the car is switched off. Ignition on. All right, so I think we have an ignition problem. Oh, no, okay. Actually, the ignition is on. We've got some really funky things happening here with the headlights. So let's just go explore those and find out what the actual heck is going on, because a lot of this stuff doesn't actually work, and yeah, there's some weird things happening. Let's go have a look. All right, so ignition on. So that is the ignition circuit. We've got our park lights on. So they've obviously been wired up to suit the ignition being on. So they're always going to come on, which is great. Let's try right indicator. Okay, so nothing works there. Left indicator, nothing works there. What you can also see is the driver's side headlight ring is actually glowing orange. So that is rigged up to the wrong circuit altogether. I did just notice that he doesn't have his flasher relay connected as well. So let's just have a quick look at that. Just see if we can install it and try and get this thing to work the way that it should. It does look a little bit how you're going as well. The terminals are actually slightly melted. Okay, so that's not doing anything there. That's left indicator, that's right indicator, nothing's happening. Okay, low beam, high beams, that's not flashing at all. All right, so now that's low beam by the look of it. Oh, okay, so high beam works, excellent, that's all gravy. Oh, that was left indicator, and that flashes with the vehicle as well. That's literally me applying pressure to the left indicator, and that's flashing high beam. So something there is incorrect. That's right indicator, nothing's there. Okay, so now that one must be, that's on there, but the lights have just turned off altogether and the indicator switch isn't working. If I flash it, if I turn it either way, nothing's happening. So we now need to go through and work out what on earth is going on. His horn doesn't work either, so that's something that we do need to address. But the globes in the dash seem to be working fine when you turn the ignition on and off. So let's go through, work out what the heck is going on with this. Probably even get another flasher relay as well, I reckon. One thing I did also just notice as well is that when you turn the high beam on, so I would imagine this one to be probably high beam, when you flick it forward, let me just see if I can get it. Yeah, so that's back. So now that's forward in terms of the indicator. The high beam light on the dash just here doesn't work, but whereas if I go like this and remove that up to the middle click, the high beam comes on, and then if I flick it left and right, sorry, I'll just try and get that camera in the right angle. If I flick it on and off, it does show that it is changing in regards to high beam, low beam, but nothing's changing on the dash. So I'd say that he's got that wired up incorrectly as well. Now going to be something that we have to sit there and ponder it for ages and work out what on earth we need to do. That's, okay, that's the electric fuel pump. Not sure what that is, but we can probably work that out. All right, so I guess the good thing about a classic Mini is that the wiring isn't overly complicated with these things, and there is only 2 fuses, I believe, from memory on this model. Some of the later models did come out with more fuses, but yeah, this is pretty straightforward. So let's jump in here, let's have a look and see what it is exactly we need to do with the wiring and try and figure out what the heck is actually going on. All right, so first thing I'm gonna be doing is grabbing a test light, and we're gonna make sure the test light actually works before we go any further to ensure that it's working correctly. It's nice and green, which means thumbs up. So essentially, we just wanna be testing both sides of the fuse. So we've got power there, we have power there, terrific. Now this one here, we have no power at all, and same there. Okay, but the fuse in there actually does look a little bit how you're going. Essentially what we want to be doing is ensuring that one side of the circuit has constant power, then the other one has switched ignition. That just means that it'll only work when the ignition is switched on. So we're just going to swap these fuses over, just see if it makes any difference to this side, so we can test this one. This one actually looks like it's been repaired. Yeah, it does look pretty dodgy actually. Let's just see what it does when we put it in here. It'll either work or it won't. If it doesn't, then we can start with that. So power one side, power the other side. Okay, cool. So we know that fuse is good. So we swap them over. We still have no power here. Let's see if that is our switched ignition source. So for that, all we need to be doing is turning the ignition on. We might just turn that fuel pump on and see what that does, see if that makes any difference. That should be on switched ignition. Let's have a look. Yeah, okay. So there's nothing there. And we're just going to test these other wires here as well. So there's nothing there, and there's nothing there either. So that's really, really odd. So we've got to work out what the heck is actually going on and where all this power is going, or lack of power, should I say. All right, so this is where having a workshop manual definitely comes in handy for these sort of things. We can go back through and work out exactly what needs to be done, and I'm just using this one here. So if you have a Haynes manual or just a classic Mini workshop manual, this would be the best way to go about it. Now, from memory, this came out with an 850, so we're just going to be looking for the correct wiring diagram for it. So you just got to scroll through and find the right one. You can obtain these online as well. One of Tomo's tech tips here is, once you find the wiring diagram that you need for your vehicle, find it, print it out, and then laminate it. That way you can keep it to the side. That way you can always refer back to it and know that it's going to be safe no matter how many times you drop it or grab it with dirty fingers. All right, so I believe I've found it. We just got to make sure that we can track it back all the way to the ignition switch. So we start at the switch and then work our way backwards. Make sure that everything is wired correctly. So long as everything's wired correctly, we then go and test each individual circuit. All right, so what I've found is all the wiring was around the wrong way to begin with. So all the green wires need to go on the one side. That'll be for the indicators, the wipers, all that sort of stuff. So we're just swapping them around at the moment. And then the purple wires need to go on the other side with the brown wire that comes directly out of here. This car's also been fitted with a brand new wiring harness as well, courtesy of someone that I'm not going to mention their name. That should be about where it needs to be. So all the white wires go down the bottom, the green wires go at the top, the purple wires go on the other side, along with the brown wire as well. Now we should have it rigged up to suit the correct circuit. So let's just double check. All right, so that's not connected, that's fine. Let's turn the ignition on and let's have a look and see what we've got. So ignition's on, low beam, okay, that's low and high beam, they are changing, fabulous. So there's still no indicators left and right. So what we now need to do is look at the flasher relay and then work out exactly which circuit needs to go where. All right, so we're now inside the car. What we're going to be doing is checking to make sure that we've got power at the flasher relay itself. So once again, always just make sure that your test light works before you go ahead and start testing circuits. That way it just prevents you looking down the wrong path, thinking that there's a problem when there actually isn't. So we just got to find a circuit that has power to it, and then we can go ahead and continue with our diagnosis. Oh, there we go, that's got power, fabulous. Okay, whew, that's flasher relay is actually quite hot. I'm not entirely sure why. So we're going to be testing the flasher indicator here. Okay, so that's got power, excellent. That should, I think those two share the same power, possibly. All right. So in one of these wires, we have power, which is fabulous. That's exactly what we want. And then the other wire we don't. So this is coming directly from the ignition switch. So if we just turn that ignition off, power goes. If we turn it back on, power comes. So fabulous, that is working the correct way. Now, what we're going to be doing is just grabbing that relay. Definitely feels like it's seen better days. We want to make sure that the wire that's coming out of here, so this dark green one just there, that goes all the way back to the switch, which goes to this one here. Want to make sure that we've got power there. So, at the moment we don't, probably because it's a relay. Oh, okay, so that's no power, power. Okay, so that's got power there normally. And then if we flip it the other way, this is probably the flasher circuit there. Okay, so there's nothing there, there's nothing there. All right, I think we've got an issue in here. Considering this wiring harness piece here is melted, it's probably half the issue, I reckon. Or we've got the wrong style flasher can in there, because that's a 3-pin, and we actually, sorry, it's a 2-pin, we actually need a 3-pin as well. So let's just test this. Okay, we've got power there, excellent. What I'm going to do to begin with is just grab the flasher can out of grace and just test it and make sure that that's not the problem first. All right, so I've just grabbed the flasher can out of Grace and we're going to throw that in there. This is a really easy part and a cheap part as well to afford to be able to test it. So we're just going to grab it, stick it in there just like that. Let's turn the indicators on and hope that it works. All right, so here goes nothing. Turn the ignition on, which headlights are on. Left, right, so that's not working. Okay, just make sure that we got it in the right connection. All right, so here goes nothing. Turn the indicator on, so this is right. Hey, something's flashing, I can't exactly see. I'll just turn the lights off. Okay, that looks like the ring around the bottom on the driver's side is flashing. And then let's go left. Okay, so that's actually flashing incorrectly on the driver's side, but correctly on the passenger side. So essentially what's happening here is the passenger side light is indicating properly. So it's showing around the halo light, whereas the driver's side one is only working the opposite. So the park light down below is flashing and not the ring on the actual halo light itself. So all we need to do here is work out the wiring on the driver's side, readjust it, and then we should be fine. All right, so to help me out with this, what we're actually going to do is just jack up the car. It is super hard to be able to get underneath Iggs at the moment, especially because of the size bloody wheels that he's got on here. You can kind of see it just flickering. So I think the flasher relay is on the way out. So this is a really cheap and inexpensive thing to do. So what I'll do is I'll duck out and grab a brand new one. Possibly the one that's in Grace at the moment isn't all that good. So I'm hoping that that's all it's going to be. You know what, and it would probably also explain as to why the park light flashes on the passenger side when the indicators are on, as to how it's been wired up. So I'd say at one stage the wrong wire's probably just been applied to it. So you just want to make sure that you apply it to the right source. That way you can ensure that the car's going to work the way in which it was designed. All right, so once it's safely on an axle stand, we're all good to get underneath it. Just take my good hat off and let's have a bit of a look up under here. All right, so I've grabbed my trusty test light. I've made sure that we have good earth, and yep, so that's our power wire just there. So essentially what we're gonna do is just cut this green wire and then see what happens when we disconnect it, and hopefully that ring will go out. Okay, so the ring does not go out. So that tells me that is not the right wire and we need to adjust it. So I'm gonna cut this one and see what this does. All right, so that's the indicator assembly. So this yellow blue wire will be for the indicator. So somehow the wiring harness here is maybe backwards. Let's just have a look and see if this fixes it. So we're just going to swap the wires around, just touch them together, just make sure. There we go. So I'd say, although the wire color designation is correct, the actual order of it is incorrect. So we're just swapping these around. So do the same thing again. And that's the right one. Excellent. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. Indicators now work. Now let's check to make sure the lights work correctly. So that is park lights. So we don't have any parkers at the back of the vehicle, but we've got them at the front. This is our next concern. All right, so I've just worked something out that's really odd. So with the ignition switched on and the light switched off, no lights are on other than the DRLs at the front. If I turn it to the first switch, nothing happens at the back, but the front lights turn on. If I then turn it to the bottom switch, the front lights turn off and the rear ones stay on. So what we now need to do is work out which circuit is around the wrong way, and we just have to reverse it. But you should be able to do parkers on the first one, then low beam on the second, and then high beam on the stalk. So we should be okay to be able to just work out those switches. So let's just jump back in the cabin and figure out what we need to do. All right, so I essentially just found a heap of wires that were disconnected off here on the switch. So if you just turn that on and off now, it'll work. Now, it'll only work with it on the lowest setting, so it's not really an issue because the headlights still work as well. All right, folks, so that is essentially the episode. As you can see, I do have Grace in behind me in the shed. So somehow the footage in which I managed to film on Kyle's car didn't actually come through, especially the very end. Essentially what I found was the ignition switch and the wiring for the headlight switch was wired completely incorrect. So I just sat there and just fiddled around with it, got all the wiring done properly, and then we rectified it. Now with the indicator itself, a new flasher can did fix the problem. He did have the halo ring for the park light rigged up to the wrong circuit, so it would actually work the opposite of which the passenger side did. So we did get that rectified, and I do apologize I don't have the remainder footage to be able to upload here. So that's the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It was an episode that I thought was going to be a lot bigger than what it was, but it actually turned out to be quite simple, which a lot of the time these problems are. So it's really important to not overlook the basics and make sure that you check all of it before you get too in depth. Otherwise, as I said before, you get so involved, you get so far down the track, and before you know it, you're 3 or 4 hours in, you don't have an answer, and you've just wasted a heap of time and money. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you right here on another episode of Tomo's Tune-Ups.